I wanted an AI that could be both a supportive best friend and a genius assistant, so I built one with LangGraph and Telegram. In this video, I'll show you how I made an AI with two personalities. We'll break down how it works, its architecture, walk through the code, and even peek at what's next. So the concept was for me to build an AI with two alter egos or two personalities. So one personality is the best friend personality, which I can vent to or I could have a small talk with, and its job is to understand my feelings without me saying it out loud and then responding it in that makes it sound like a best friend. And of course, remember my stories and celebrate my wins and all those other stuff. And the second one is the assistant mode. This is the serious mode, and its job is to make me learn, create exactly like ChatGPT. And I designed it for it to replace my ChatGPT Pro. And there is one specific constraint that involves in this mode, which is no matter what question I ask it about anything in the world, for it to summarize it in 120 words. So phase one of this mode is to replace ChatGPT for any kind of information retrieval related queries, and then replace Perplexity for any real-time information, right? And then for phase two, to handle my daily to-do list and of course my projects, either company project or personal projects and milestones. And then phase three is to actually help me achieve some of my tasks by accessing external tools. Let's take a look at the brain of our AI, Bestie or V. So the first thing is the user sends a text through Telegram, and we have a webhook here that listens to whenever the user sends a text. I'm gonna walk you through this when we're going through our code. So once the user sends the text in, it's being handled by our backend, which is of course powered by LangGraph. And then the first node, these are basically the nodes, and the first node is the safety triage, and this node checks whether the text that was received by the user contains some harmful content or not. And once it approves, it goes through the second node, which is the node that's called sense. Of course, both of them are powered by Llama through Grok, of course. And then what this node does is it extracts the intent from the user. For example, it says the user wants an information or the user wants to vent. And then on top of that, what it does is it detects emotions and then says, okay, what is the user feeling? Is the user feeling happy, or is the user feeling neutral, or is the user feeling sad, for example? And once it does all of that, it updates the state, and then it goes to the mode decider. Now this agent is the agent that decides which personality are we going to choose to answer the text that we just received from the user. And we are passing the last 5 turns of the conversation along with the text that we just received from the user. So it could decide, okay, maybe the Bestie personality is the perfect fit to answer the user query, or the assistant. Once the mode decides which personality we're going to use, start with the Bestie personality. So the Bestie personality has 2 layers or 2 nodes basically. So the planner node decides what to say, and the drafter node decides how to say it. So this is V's heart, and this is basically V's voice, and then it ends from that. And so if the mode decider decides that we want the assistant to answer the user query, the assistant contains 3 layers or 3 nodes. So the first node is the classifier. Now, for example, if the user wants some information, now what the classifier does is it says, okay, what type of information is this, for example, or what type of assistant work that does the user needs. And right now we have a specific categories that it classifies into. For example, the user wants to inform or information, the user wants to learn, the user wants to create, or the user wants to update, right? And then once it decides which one of the information categories the user text falls into, then it goes to the planner. And then what the planner does is, this is the most important part of this one, right? Remember that we had a constraint of the answer that we want the assistant to provide. So what this planner does is a bit complex planner. So what it does is it budgets how many words. For example, if the classifier says, okay, this is information, and then this is, for example, what is FPV drone, and what this one does is, first of all, it makes a content outline, and then after that it budgets how many words do we want to fit in each content outline, if that makes sense. So it budgets the 80 to 120 words and then goes to the generator, and then the generator will receive some kind of a content outline, and then it answers the question and then finally replies to Telegram. So now let's look at that. So the way that V works is the switch of personalities happens in the back end, and this happens after V analyzes the text and decides, okay, do we want to activate the best friend personality or do we want to activate the assistant personality? If I want to have a small talk, hi, how have you been today, for example, this should, as you can see, V's typing, and you can see he been a while, right? Today my brain's still buzzing from the connector talk earlier. How about you, Ma? Still sorting your dreams or finally chilling? So this is the best friend mode talking. So if I want to vent, or if I want to, for example, let out my emotions, or if I want to have anything just best friendly going on, I could just have a small talk with V and it automatically activates the best friend mode. And let's just say I'm feeling today, for example, and a mode the fuck where you can just where you can't even name the feeling. I've been there and it's the worst. Want to tell me what bit of today's been the weirdest? So as you can see, one of the main goal of the V's personality was to sound as much human as possible, number one, and number two, to just act as a best friend and not as a therapist, if that makes sense, and just be there and not just try to fix me, but to just be there and just listen to me, So now let's test the assistant mode, and the assistant mode activates automatically. For now, what the assistant can do is just answer questions, and as I've said before, this was designed to replace ChatGPT. So let me just ask a question that I was recently asking myself or wondering myself: what's the difference between analog FPV drone and digital drone? As you can see, V is typing now, and here is the result. As you can see, there's no best friendly vibe going on. This is a straightforward answer, and it gave me analog definition here. It gave me the digital drone definition here. This is a comparison in terms of video quality. This is a comparison in terms of latency, and this is a comparison in terms of cost differences. And as you can see, it followed our words constraint of being 80 to 120 words. And if I would have asked the same question to ChatGPT, which you can try yourself, it might give me the same content, but then in an art, right? Rather than being able to summarize it. So we're doing this by going through 3 different layers or 4 different layers to answer this exact question, which we're gonna see in the coming section. But for now, this is what I mean by an AI that has 2 personalities. So this is the code of the AI friend, or what I love or like to call AI Bestie. And this is the folder structure. I hope I don't leak any sensitive information because I'm just too lazy to just sort stuff up, right? And so this is our file structure. The main important thing that I want to go through right now is the nodes, which is going to be inside the graph folder. Every other thing here is so messy. I will clean it up. Let's start with the nodes. If we go to our nodes, this is the ingest node. It does a simple thing, which is get the text that we received from the user and then save it into a state value that's called the last user text. And then after that, it will go to the safety triage. It analyzes or investigates if there is a harmful content in the user text. And this is the prompt of the safety triage. You are a content moderator. Your task is to determine if the user text violates any of the following, and these are the things it analyzes, right? Now, after the safety triage, it goes to the sense, which it extracts emotional data from the user's text if the user is feeling angry, or right. So if we go to the sensing, and you can see from here, these are the data that we are trying to collect from the text. Basically, emotions, the type of emotions, how confident are we, of course the intent, how uncertain that we are of this emotion or the intent, and then the needs. So this is the prompt, and infer to up to 3 emotions, blah blah, and then uncertainty, it gives 0 to 1 of measurement of if it's certain about what's the user is feeling or not. And as you can see, we feel this is just an exception. I don't want to go too much deeper into it. A default value that we are returning. So after we analyze the user's emotions and the intent, in this one we go to the mode decider that we just talked about. So the mode decider's basically responsibility is to decide based on the emotions that we just detected from here and the intent we just detected from here, if we want to direct the user to the bestie personality or the assistant personality, and then after that it would either return assistant or a bestie, and then from that we either go to this one information guardian, or we go to the bestie planner. So let's just assume that the mode is assistant. Now we have a V information guardian. We could go to the graph in here. As you can see, the graph has classifier, has a unified goal extractor. So the I forgot to put it in our design or architecture. So what the unified goal does is it extracts goals and sub goals off of the user's query. For example, if the user asks what is laptop, for example, what the unified goal extractor would do is, okay, the user wants to know what is laptop, and then it would also generate subtask and say, for example, we need to define what laptop is, we need to define the use cases of laptops, and we need to define advantages of laptops, for example, right? So this is the agent that is responsible to do all of that. Now after that, let's go back to here, and then after that it goes to node plan response, and this one budgets the user's response, right, based on the words. For example, if this one says we need to define what laptop is, we need to define the use cases of laptop, what this one does is it would say, okay, the definition of laptop needs to take up to maybe 15 words, and then use cases of laptop needs to take up to 20 words, for example. I will be uploading the code, but I think we could go into, let's go to the planner prompt so you can understand more. You can see we're loading the planner prompt from here, and VRL. Let's go to the prompts in here, V information, and then this is the planner on the right. And as you can see, system purpose is the structure of the answer, so the generator can fulfill the user. So it prepares some kind of instructions and word budget to another node or another agent that's called knowledge generator. So the main important thing is to check the output format. So you can see here the extractor, if the extractor input or the goal extractor input that we just talked about is improve study habits, and then the subtask is explain the Pomodoro technique. If the user asks what is Pomodoro technique, and then describe active recall, and then suggest, for example, creating something like that. So there is another field in here that's called clarification needed. So what happens is sometimes, which ChatGPT fails to do, is the user might ask a question and then there might be some kind of a confusion of the answer. So what I needed the information guardian to do, or what V's assistant side to do, is ask for clarification, right? So now after that, as you can see with the planner output, so these are the examples. Examples help the LLM to be more predictable and of course less hallucination, right? And as you can see, it does this. So it prepares some kind of a note to fulfill the goal and says, okay, this is the goal that we're trying to achieve, and then these are the tasks that I need you to do. And as you can see, first it was explained the Pomodoro techniques. This is what the user wants. Now it turns that into some kind of an order and says start by explaining Pomodoro technique, and then says this is the order one, and so it orders 1 2 2 3, and then it gives a word budget and says, okay, we need 20 words for you to describe what the Pomodoro technique is. And it does that to the second one, describe active recall and its benefits, and using basically 30 words budget, and then the third one, and then the fourth one within the limit of 120 words. Now after that, it goes to the knowledge generator, and then what the knowledge generator does is basically, let's just go to the examples, and then says this is the input that we're going to receive, and then the generator prompt should be closer to 90 words. This is based on the total of the word budget that was given by the planner. And then the generator output, what it does is now it says, okay, what is learning? And then it answers, and then the second section, and then it answers, and then it goes on exactly like that, following the order and the word budget that was given by the planner. And then after that, all of it is inside a graph. And then after that, we get, of course, we're passing the last text to the VR, as you can see, invoke, and then we are invoking this one, and then the last text that we receive from the knowledge generator will be saved into a state called draft, and then of course we move on from there. Now if the mode decides that we want the best friend personality to answer the question. Now as you can see, first we plan what to say. Now let's look at the planner. Let's go into the planning chain, and this is the template. So let me go to the prompt folder. I hope I'm not leaking any sensitive information in here. And then right now this is the plan folder. So let's go to the examples to make it even more easier. And as you can see, now we're passing what we sensed from the user, the emotions that we sensed from the user. For example, if the user is tired or sad or something like that. And then we're saying this is how you want to generate the strategy or what to say next. For example, strategy note, your output should be if the user is tired, they're dragging at low energy, match their vibe, add a little lightness, and see if anything specific is bugging them. That means ask them a question. So the first section of the response from the AI best friend will be relate, try to relate them, lighten up the mood, maybe make some jokes, and then maybe ask another question. And then we go from here. So what I learned from this project, the personality of the best friend becomes even more complex. Now there is a difference between being a therapist and being a best friend and being psychiatrist. But first thing is first is I'm building this whole thing for me. So for now, I just need a best friend that is just there to listen and maybe mirror and just, be with the vibe for now. So this is basically the planner. And then of course, the last thing will be the drafter that will be receiving the plan from the planner agent. And you can see these are scenarios. So if you receive that they are feeling lost in a weird fog, for example, which is the output that we just seen that we're going to be receiving from the planner now, and then you receive these are things first validate and then normalize and then ask an open question. So your output should be something like this, right? And then I gave it another example, maybe third example. Once I've finished all of this, I found out that this literally is connected to psychology as more complex than I thought, which is so exciting that I'm going to learn so much about psychology, or another field that I'm going to be calling it robo psychology. Our next plan, long-term memory. Now, thank you so much for, if you make it all the way to the end, like and subscribe if you want to be a part of V's journey and grow with V.